some people, especially in mixed groups like this, I don't know who's meditated before and who hasn't. If I leave it just to silence, then your mind may just go off into la-la land, as it is wont to do. So we may, what I do is then I offer you something to be aware of, something to follow, something to observe, to feel. Those things you can, of course, do by yourself. It doesn't take much to find a bit of quiet time during the day, to just sit still for a little while, maybe close down the eyes or leave the eyes open, it doesn't matter. And tune into how your body is feeling, what it's touching, the sensations of the body, consciously relaxing the body, perhaps coming to the in-breath and the out-breath and having some conscious breaths. Being aware of your other senses, so you can be aware of seeing, but then sometimes when you close your eyes you hear so much more aware of what you hear and hearing itself, so much more aware of the physical sensations of the body, and also your other senses, smelling, tasting. And you become more aware of your mind, especially if you're able to follow your in and out breath, just silently, feeling the coolness of the in-breath, the warmth of the out-breath. You start to, if you can start to concentrate on that, then you'll very clearly see when any thought comes into the mind. This is one of the most important aspects of meditation. People think that meditation is an attempt to kill thoughts or stop thoughts or prevent thoughts from coming into the mind, which is really quite forceful. And it creates stress. It's quite strange, but when people have this attitude in meditation, they actually get quite stressed in meditation. So the idea is not to stop things from happening. In this mindfulness meditation, we're just observing what is happening. Or, in the case of observing the breath, instead of being aware of other things, we're just gently focusing our attention on the sensation of the breath. If you're aware or distracted by something else, it's okay, you just notice it, come back to the breath. There might be a thought, okay, that's a thought, come back to the breath. You might hear something, you're aware of it, come back to the breath. Just training the mind to come back to the breath and relax. Even this, you just do it a few minutes. It's already beneficial for you. And it's a great way to refresh your mind, because you're not busy with so many thoughts. And in a busy day, like at work, you can take even just a few minutes and just, even with your eyes open, you could be sitting at your desk with your fingers on your keyboard, but you could just go breathing in and breathing out. Just tune into your breath for a little while. And it just refreshes your mind. And then, back to work. Whatever kind of work you do, it can take a little bit of time just to take a few mindful breaths, and it can just start to clear the mind. And then towards the end of the meditation, then I was talking about, firstly, self-acceptance, accepting the body as it is, accepting what's happening in the mind, the thoughts, the emotions, the mental reactions, allowing them to come and go, because they do that anyway. Again, we don't have to get rid of thoughts, they're actually going by themselves. Thoughts come and go, that's their nature. Every thought comes and goes. So when you're aware of this, you no longer have to struggle with your mind. A lot of meditators, again, they get stressed and they struggle with their meditation. And it's not necessary. What are you struggling with? You're just fighting with your own mind. It doesn't make sense. So to be able to notice that a thought comes, you notice, this is a shopping thought. You don't have to say it's a shopping thought, you know it is, but you notice it's a thought, and you sometimes, once you're noticing it, it's already on its exit. Basically, you've just opened the door. So there you go, off you go. You were going anyway. I didn't sit down here to meditate and think about shopping. So it was just a passing thought. A bit like you would sit outside there and just watch cars go up and down the street. They're not your cars. You don't have to stop them, you don't have to control them, you don't have to tell them to slow down, go faster, be, less noisy or whatever. You just notice. Your cars, they go up and down the street. Can you sit and be aware of thought and just see them come and go? Without fighting, without trying to control. And sometimes a little kind of a miracle happens, is your mind just actually calms down by itself because it's coming to a state of self-acceptance. It just said, okay, these are thoughts. So what? Am I going to fight with them? Who am I fighting with? What am I fighting with? So this self-acceptance of your own mind, rather than a trying to forcefully change your mind, this is where most people will make a mistake, especially in meditation. They get forceful about changing their mind. And nearly everyone who comes to meditation, if you ask them, why did you come to meditation? I can't quiet my mind. My mind's too busy. My mind's too noisy. I can't concentrate. I'm too distracted. Okay, that's pretty normal actually. So what we then try to do is we try to forcefully stop the mind from doing that. And what are we doing then? We're creating tension. And that doesn't really work. It creates more angst. Some people will just give up meditation and say, I can't do that. Other people that I invite to meditate, or I tell them, I'm a meditation teacher, they go, I can't meditate, I think too much. Yeah, well, if we sit down for 5 minutes, you'll realize that it's not about thinking too much, or not thinking enough, or stopping thoughts. It's about noticing the nature of your mind. At least they've already got that insight. Okay, at least you know you think too much. There's some mindfulness there, isn't there? So, what if we were able to accept that? This power of acceptance is really quite phenomenal. We don't know how powerful acceptance can be. We know the power of forcefully trying to change things. This is coming from the ego. The ego says, I can change this, I can make this better, I'll make it work. Okay, that's nice, do that. You'll end up tired, perhaps frustrated, maybe even angry and stressed. Maybe you'll succeed, but at the end of it, your ego will just be that much bigger because it said, see, I told you I could, shut my mind down or stop it from thinking or whatever. Okay, congratulations, you stopped thinking for how long? 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Okay, and now what are you going to do with this, now that you know how to stop your mind from thinking for a while? And what did you achieve in those 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of not thinking? What did you get from that? Did you, build an empire? Or did you just, did you just check out? Or was it just nice and peaceful? What are you really looking for? Do you want to develop your mind, or do you want to stop it from doing things? Do you want to enhance the natural capabilities of the mind? So this is an important question as well. Why are we meditating? What are we looking for? What do I really want? And then to find ways to achieve that. And strangely enough, what I'm suggesting is a little bit of self-acceptance. A little bit of just saying, okay, this is the way it is. What if I just say, alright, Thinking is thinking. Breathing is breathing. Hearing is hearing. Feeling is feeling. Seeing is seeing. Anger is anger. Fear is fear. Sleepiness is sleepiness. But if I'm aware of all of these things, I'm actually learning from them by identifying them, seeing them, knowing that they're happening. I'm actually learning little bits of lessons of all of these, because normally I'm not aware of them. And you can't learn something unless you're aware. So to me, meditation was always a learning experience. I realized that mindfulness is the learning faculty of the mind. It's paying attention. If you don't pay attention, you can't learn. Doesn't matter who you are or where you are. You go to the greatest professor in the world and listen to, the greatest lecture in the world. If you're not paying attention, if you're just, scrolling, swiping, or, you're off with the fairies, just daydreaming, then you're not paying attention. Doesn't matter how great the teacher is, how great the place is, how great the reputation is of the place and the teacher, etc. If you don't pay attention, you don't learn. You don't get the lesson, you don't grow. So what I've found is that mindfulness is the learning faculty of the mind. Then whatever I have mindfulness of, whatever I pay attention to, I'm learning from that. And it can be something as simple as breathing in and breathing out. It has so much to teach. It's really unbelievable what you can learn from your breath if you pay attention. In fact, I could almost go to the extreme of saying you can learn everything that you need to learn. And I'll say this perhaps in a spiritual context, by observing your breath. Of course, you're not going to learn how to fly an aeroplane by watching your breath. It's not that kind of learning. It's not intellectual or academic learning. It's not mechanical learning or engineering learning. But by watching your breath, you can definitely learn what is a human being? What is life? What is the reality of the present moment? What are the exchange of the elements that are happening both within my body and the internal, external exchange of elements and their characteristics? And the nature of the mind. What is the nature of the mind that's watching the breath? So we're not just watching the breath, we're watching the nature of the mind that's watching the breath. So you learn what is mindfulness. You learn what thoughts are. You learn the emotions that come up when you get frustrated and go, bloody breath, I can't watch this, or bloody thoughts coming and getting angry and frustrated, or, what time is it? How long have I been doing this? Blah, blah, blah. And you start to watch, oh, look at the anger. Look at the frustration. Sometimes even fear. So many emotions will come up just while you're sitting and watching the breath. So I found in mindfulness meditation, the more things that I observe, the more things I learn from. And that's the beauty of mindfulness meditation. Whatever you are mindful of, you are inadvertently or automatically learning from that experience. It's so beautiful. So this is one of the foundations, or perhaps it is the foundation of all the other things that I've mentioned at the beginning. Self-acceptance must come from a foundation of self-awareness. You must be aware before you can accept. So the awareness comes first. Then when you are aware of yourself, your physical processes, including your senses, and then you're aware of your mental states, including thinking and your emotions, you can start to learn from them. Then you will naturally start to come into a state of acceptance. There may be times of resistance when you say, oh, I think too much, or I'm too angry, or I'm too fearful or something. But then you have to also realize that that is a judgment about your own mind. So we have to be careful that we are not judging our own mind. But practicing acceptance means, okay, I see that there is fear in my mind. This is not a bad thing, it's actually a good thing. You would think that if you see fear in your mind, you would think it's a bad thing. Oh, why have I got so much fear in my mind? It's not good. It's good that you're aware of it. Because once you're aware of it, you can learn from it, and then you'll come to understand it. If you understand fear, it will naturally reduce the fear. You will also be able to accept fear. When you accept anything, you relax. When you relax, you become more open. When you become more open, you learn. It's a natural unfolding. I love this process, that we don't have to force ourselves to experience things. We can allow things to come up naturally. All your lessons are coming to you every day of your life. Everything you do, you're getting lessons. When you get in the car to drive from A to B, you're being taught. When you, put your shoes on, when you clean something, there's a lesson there. We're not aware of the lessons, partly because we are resisting doing the job that we're doing, or we're off thinking about something from the past, from the future, and we're not present to learn the lesson. So this is why meditation becomes such a great tool for realization. But are you patient enough to be still, to stay in one place for a while? Or perhaps it doesn't even entail that. Are you patient enough to just be present with yourself? Can you allow yourself to just experience yourself? So we've got self-awareness, we've got self-acceptance. Forgiveness is a very big topic and a very big practice. I wrote a book on it. It's called Forgiveness for Everyone, Jeff Oliver. If you'd like to Google it, it'll come up. There will be a couple of links. You can download it as a free PDF. It's not for sale. Nothing I do is for sale. Everything I do is actually for free or by donation. Forgiveness for everyone. The title has two meanings. Naturally we would think, oh, this is a technique so that I can forgive everyone. Actually, that's not what it means, really. It means everyone can do forgiveness. This forgiveness is for everyone to practice. And what forgiveness is, and people will be a little bit surprised when they start to read the book, the first part is, it starts with forgiving oneself. To forgive yourself. It has a great power. More power than we can understand. Like I said earlier, the self-acceptance is a power that we don't really understand. What self-forgiveness is, it's a looking back in the past, realizing that you've made some mistakes, maybe hurt some people, probably, in my case, definitely hurt some people with bad choices, bad language, bad actions, bad thoughts, being insensitive, being unmindful, not being aware of the consequences of what I do, having or lacking foresight into the future, not realizing that what I'm doing now is going to come back to me later on. When we don't understand that, then we do something in the moment without any thought of the future. We don't sometimes respect the other person and how they feel, and so we may do something with this ignorance, this lack of wisdom, a lack of sensitivity, a lack of consideration, and we may hurt others. Really what we don't understand is that we're hurting ourselves. Even though we've hurt others, we don't realize that we are hurting ourselves, that this will come back to us. This is a natural law. We call it karma, and it actually has nothing to do with any individual. It's across the board for everybody. All beings, not only humans, but all beings, live by the law of karma. You can't, it's inescapable. It is what we are living now. It's our conditioning from our past that's causing our present, and our past and our present create our future. It's an ongoing process. It's unfolding in this moment. It is what we are. If we understand that what I say and do and think now is going to affect my future, aren't you going to be more mindful? Aren't you going to become more careful? Don't you want to be happier in the future, or more peaceful, or have less suffering, or be more free? It seems obvious that that is what we want. We don't want to have more suffering in the future, or more difficulties, or more problems, or more unpleasant things happening in the future. We would all like to be more free, more open, more perhaps flowing, more peaceful. Then that's again where mindfulness becomes very important in the present moment. What we did in the past, we can't change now. We can reflect on the past, and we can take lessons from what we've done in the past and realize that they were not particularly skillful, that some of the suffering that I'm experiencing in my life, be it past or present, and even suffering that I will experience in the future, was caused by my decisions in the past, by a lack of wisdom, a lack of understanding. It was from ignorance or foolishness that I spoke and I acted. When we understand this key point, we start to live more in the present moment. But when we are in the act of reflecting on the past, we may realize that we have caused suffering in three ways. We've caused suffering to others, we've caused suffering to ourselves, and inadvertently we've caused suffering to come to us. We don't really understand this third point. Most of us live our life thinking that others are just harming us. Others are causing our suffering. And in this way we live a life full of tension and resistance and trying to stop other people from causing us suffering. But actually the cause of suffering comes from inside. It's not from the outside. This is a really difficult lesson. It's not something that you can just pick up overnight, so to speak. And even my saying this may cause you to feel a little bit like, no, it's impossible, it can't be like that. They hurt me, so my suffering is caused by them. But there's something that you did that put you in the situation where you could be hurt by them. Whether you know it or not, whether it was a conscious decision or not, we're not going around looking for suffering. We don't think to ourselves, oh, how can I get somebody to abuse me? How can I get somebody to cause me harm? Even those people that go into abusive relationships, they don't go into the relationship at the beginning think, oh, in 5 or 10 years' time, I'll be well abused in this relationship. It's not the reason that you go into the relationship. We don't see it. We lack that foresight. And we're not looking for suffering. We're actually looking for happiness. And I believe they're actually looking for peace, contentment, serenity. So why did I make those decisions in the past that manifest as suffering in my life? It's because I didn't understand the law of cause and effect. So then there are these three parts to forgiveness. Forgiving myself for harming others, forgiving myself for harming myself, and then lastly, forgiving others who appear to have harmed me. I have some questions that I formulated to make this into quite a systematic practice. The first one, the first step in forgiveness is to forgive myself for harming others. So, who did I harm? The question pops up. Who did I harm? Maybe you can think of somebody. Maybe someone just pops up in your mind. Who did I harm? Might have been someone this morning or yesterday. Could have been someone at work. Could have been someone maybe 5-10 years ago. Might have been a long time ago. Might have been someone that you love. Might have been a lover. May have been a family member. Who did I harm? And then, how did I harm them? Was it by speech, actions, or thought? These are the three modes of karma. All of us are operating on these three things all day, every day. We speak, we act, we think. All of us have these three modes of existence, or things that we do every day. The answer could be all of those. I hurt that person by speech, action and thought. And your thoughts can hurt people. Thoughts are not just something that's contained in your head. They are vibrational. So if you have a negative thought about someone, sometimes they can feel it. They may not know the content of the thought, but they can feel the intention or the intensity of the thought. They've measured thoughts now, and they are measurable from the aura or the external energy of the body. And then the next question is, why did I harm? So again, I've got three answers from the Buddha's teachings. Was I greedy or selfish? As in not considering the other one? Was I angry, or was it hatred? Or was I just confused? Didn't know what I was doing? Greed, hatred, delusion. Or softer terms are desire, aversion, confusion. Your mind is always in one of these three states. Okay, it might be neutral, but it's pretty rare that your mind is actually neutral. This is not a bad thing, it's a human thing. So we're either in a state of desire, aversion, or confusion. Not real good choices, really, are they? There are other mental states, of course, that we can be in. Yes, I'll actually correct myself, because of course we can be in a state of love, we can be in a state of acceptance, etc. There are many beautiful things. So these three are primary causes for suffering. So when we're causing harm to somebody, it would have been one of these. It could have been some other similar or related, but these are generally the three mental states. Or it could have been all of them. In a case of a relationship, we are greedy, we're angry, we're confused. And we do speak, act and think from these three mental states. And they do cause suffering to others. So what you're doing here is we're objectively asking questions about what were the facts that happened at that time. Not the usual justification that comes up in the mind. The mind goes into story and it goes, yeah, but she caused it and it was her fault, and you know, he shouldn't have said that, and you know, I was right, and go into the blah blah justifications that the mind does. This is what the ego does. It's always right. It wants everyone and everything else to be wrong, or to be the fault or the cause for our suffering. But in this case, it's purely objective. What did I do at that time? How did I cause harm or suffering to that person? Was it speech, action, thought? Was I greedy, angry, or confused? Just to keep it simple. Then ask yourself, was I aware at that time? Like as we sat earlier and we were very aware and mindful of what was happening. Was I aware at that time? Probably not. Was I wise at that time? I would say definitely not. Usually we don't harm people with wisdom. It's ignorance that causes us to harm other people. So you realise, I wasn't mindful, I wasn't aware, I wasn't wise. You could ask here, was it intentional? Did I intentionally harm that person? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. The outcome was still the same. You did harm the person. Sometimes we harm people where we didn't have any intention to harm them, but the outcome was still the same. So to some extent you're still at fault because you weren't aware and you weren't mindful, you weren't wise. So the outcome is still the same. Then ask yourself, am I sorry? Am I sorry that I did that? If you're not, then you can't do forgiveness for this person. You're not ready to do this. So choose another person. Start again. Who did I harm? And try it with another person. But if your answer is, yeah, I'm sorry that I harmed this person. I'm ready to learn the lesson. Then you accept, yeah, I'm sorry. Then we can do a little reflection. That's how I was at that time. That's what I understood at that time. I was young, I was unwise, I didn't know what I was doing or saying. That's how I was at that time. Now I am sorry. I wouldn't do that again now. I don't want to be like that now, and I don't want to repeat that in the future. So here we're reflecting on or looking at the 3 periods of time. So in the past I was like that. So you're self-honest. You say, yeah, I was angry. I was confused. I was stressed. I didn't know what I was doing. I was ignorant. I was foolish. I understand that now. And in the present, now, I don't want to do that anymore. So this is wisdom, your self-wisdom that says, I'm not going to repeat that. And then it projects to the future, I don't want to repeat that. I'm not going to do that again. Or at least I'll try not to. I don't want to. And then you're ready to say, I forgive myself. I forgive myself. I forgive myself. How does that sound in your mind? Do you like it? Do you accept it? Do you believe it? I forgive myself. Do you believe that you are allowed to forgive yourself? Is it as easy as that? Some people think, oh, this is just a bunch of words. You're just saying to yourself, oh, I forgive myself, and then justifying it, and then, moving on. Your mind doesn't work like that. You can try to move on, but the mind will still have its roots in those things in the past. You can't just say, oh, I forgive myself, and move on. It doesn't work. You can trick yourself, you can delude yourself, and we're very, very good at it. But that stuff will still be burning, that little fire will still be burning in your heart. And it won't be until either the time you sit down and meditate, or the time that you are left alone by yourself, which could be a time of illness in hospital, it could be a time of loneliness when everybody else has gone and left you, it could be a time of old age, or it could be a time of death. When you're about to die and you suddenly realise, that fire's still burning. At that time it's too late to do anything.